G'day and welcome back to Let's Dissect a couple of games of Star Realms. So we're going for something that's a little bit unusual. Most of the games I play of Star Realms are against friends, people that I already interact with on Twitter. But you know, if you want to send me a challenge, you're welcome to. Just, you know, the name on the game is Ranneko. But sometimes, quite rarely, but sometimes, I will actually do a online match using matchmaking against randoms. So there's two options when you do this. One of them is just give me a game as soon as you can, and the other is I want to play with these particular expansions, give me a game with someone else that agrees with that. And so this first one I did that. I just said, you know, give me a game, I want to play. I wasn't really thinking about it, and so we've got an expansion that I don't normally use that immediately comes into play here. So this is a game against Arkham, and here's the thing that happens. First turn, we can see events. So events in Star Realms are relatively symmetrical effects that occur when the card hits the trade deck, so this row of cards, the trade row. So in this case, we actually start with two events in the trade row right at the start, and this is actually one of the things I really don't like. One of the things I quite like about them is you never know when they're going to come up. They're symmetrical effects, and so you kind of need to play carefully all the time. The other thing, though, that I don't like about them is when you start the game, your opponent gets a card which is really beneficial right at the start, but doesn't, like, the compensation that I get is actually pretty crap. So trade mission gives him 4 extra cash, which is more than doubles the maximum amount of money they can start with. Whoops. That is okay. I accidentally hit a button on my headset and it restarted the clip. Whatever. So yeah. And what do I get to compensate? I get to draw 2 cards. So it means that I get an earlier cycling of my deck, and it means I get up to 2 more cash. So the max cash I can get from this is 7, and the max cash they can get is 7. But it's really... oh, looks like there's lawn mowing or something happening outside. Hopefully not too much of that is coming across. But basically that's, from my perspective, really not a fair symmetrical effect. Especially in the first turn, and especially since they will get the card they buy put on top of their deck. But it's life. So here we go, and the other card we got, the other event, is common. So it's just 2 free scrap from your hand or discard pile. This isn't too bad. Actually, that definitely benefits me more than him, because I'm going to have 6 cards to pick from, and he's going to have 3 cards to pick from. And it turns out his starting hand, this is hard to see, is 3 scouts. So he actually scraps 2 of his 8 scouts in his deck in his first turn. So he's got 5 cash, and he grabs the what's it actually called? Come on, the heavy cruiser, which isn't a bad card, doesn't do anything for his economy, but gives him, effectively means that he will also get through his deck faster, and he will get that drawer card. And if he can get more Star Empire, he'll get to draw more cards. So that's not a bad first move, but I think actually it was a bit of a trap. And we'll go into that at the end of this game, because this is one of the ones where I've actually spent more time thinking about it. So here I've got 7 cash, sorry, I had 6 cash, and I choose to get rid of 2 cards, a Viper and a Scout. So I've got only 1 card that will not give me money left in my deck. With the 5 cash, I get Command Center, which will give me a little more cash, and then we get a Supernova. I was going to buy the Blob Fighter, but this scrapped all the cards, so I get an entirely new set of choices, so I'll buy that War Elder. Yeah, I guess. So here he gets 3 cash and 2 Vipers, and those Vipers are going to keep coming up. So he's done 6 damage to me, definitely not ideal, but I'll live, and I get a trade draft and trading post, so I've got a bit more trade federation, and I can use my War Elder to get rid of my Viper. So this is giving me multiple bases, which is going to help protect me from his damage, and I'm getting cash. In the meantime, he's stuck buying Repairbot and Blob Fighter, which are cheap cards, because he's got those 2 Vipers again. So it only had 3 cash, whereas I have 6 cash, and so I get a Falcon, and I'm going to get probably the Patrol Cutter. Black Hole is not a great card for me here. 8 damage straight, like there's nothing I can do. I've already played all my cards, whereas my opponent has to discard up to 2 cards or take 8 damage themselves. But you can see I'm already down to 29 as a result of this. And so I grabbed that Patrol Cutter. And so they discard 2 Scouts, get Orbital Platform and Heavy Cruiser, which draws them 2 cards, and lets them filter. So all in all, they were in a pretty good position to weather that storm, and they get to hit me. But we get Warp Jump. So Warp Jump is interesting, because I think in the card game, it would have forced me to cycle my deck now, before he gets to do any damage. But in the digital version, all of these effects are delayed until the start of my turn. So what happens here is he's got 7 damage, which is, in fact he's got 8 damage, which is enough to kill both of my bases. But my turn starts, and I don't have many cards in my deck. And it just so happens that the draw 3, put 2 back on top of your deck means both of my bases come up, and I can arrange them such that I get them straight away. So there we go, trading post, and yep, command center. I've got maximum cards at the moment, and I choose to get Aging Battleship. Don't exactly know why I picked Aging Battleship. Maybe it's so I can take advantage of the command center special ability. Maybe it's to deny him other cards, and I get the Missile Bot, so I got some more scrap in my deck. As he's getting to cycle, he destroys my command center, which is, yeah, probably the better of the 2 cards. Not that fussed. And so now I've got Patrol Cutter, and so here I'm actually deliberately, I know the deck's about to be cycled, so I'm deliberately spending 5 to get the Mega Mech and put that in my discard pile, so that potentially I can draw it. I don't, I get a Scout, so I'll grab that Ram Pilot, and I just get one authority from the trading post. Here I'm still pretty far behind with health, but nothing insurmountable. And so he's got kind of a little bit of a rainbow. The only cards, like both of his red cards, don't have ally effects, so it doesn't really matter to me that he got both of them. And he's forcing me to discard, but he's not got enough damage to actually get through the trading post. So, yep, I get to go through these things. I get to redeploy my command center with the Mega Mech and get to draw a card. And so that's 8 cash. That gives me a Leviathan, which remember I can use Ram Pilot with to trigger its ally ability at least once, even though I don't have any other blob cards in my deck. So he goes, he's got a lot of damage on the table, both of my bases are dead, that's a pity. And Bombardment means that means I'm going to take an extra 6 damage from Bombardment, which he's chosen to take rather than lose the Orbital Platform, which probably was a mistake. Hard for him to actually know that I have Leviathan, but he could have saved himself 6 health if he'd let it die, rather than have me kill it in my turn. But it was very likely to die anyway, so he probably should have done that. That's probably a mistake that it's something he could have worked out the probabilities on, and not gambled on keeping it. And saved 2 authority. It's not a huge deal though, right? And so I got my... Except here I get to destroy the base for free, so it would have saved him 6 authority. So I get Trade Hauler and Trade Draft, which heals me up a bit. I've got a ton of cash here. I'm hoping to draw a base so I can use Mega Mech, but I don't. Instead, you know... oh, right. I actually... At this point, because I got 26 damage, I'm really hoping I can just get enough damage to win the game outright here. So that's why I scrapped the Aging Battleship for the 2 cards that it gives me, and I don't quite get there. I take him to 4, I'm in a really good spot, but he potentially gets an opportunity to fight back, but he's not in a good spot. He needs to do 34 damage in 1 turn, which is not the easiest, especially when he hasn't been able to afford as many high cost cards. And I win at this point. Like, it's just, yep, okay, he didn't kill me, therefore I win. He would have needed to play down a number of outposts, which he did not have. So, just blam, I win. So, I think the crucial mistake here is him trying to take full advantage of the events right at the start. I think this is the turning point of the game, as strange as it may seem. The fact that he scrapped both of his 2 of his scouts, which meant that he then had a deck that was 1/4 weak damage cards. Really just... Whoops. That was my phone. One moment. It just really meant that he couldn't take advantage of some of the better cards that were coming up. Well, I could. I think in his position, the better choice would have been to get the gunship. That would have forced me to discard the next turn. And then you could have scrapped the gunship along with the, like, maybe, you know, you keep the vibe, you do the scrapping 2 cards, but you use the gunship to get yourself something like the Fed Station on the 2nd turn. But I think that was the mistake, and then he just kept getting those Vipers. They just kept showing up, and he had really low what's the word I'm trying to say? He had really low cash hands right at the start of the game for a long time. I think that is the thing that killed him, because this was not nearly as close a game as most of the other ones that I've seen. And I think it's just the random events. He did what seemed like a good decision at the time. And I'm saying I have no idea what gender Arkham is. And I think that's the crucial mistake. And it's an easy one to make. It's one I probably would have made myself. Yeah, so kind of need to be careful with those decisions right at the start, because that cost their efficiency the whole game. And now let's look at the other one. So this is against someone named Kinkade. So I get first turn again. I get cargo launch. So I've got a small amount of cash. Right, I got 3 cash. It's a pretty good starting hand, frankly, in that regard. Greatly increases the chances of a crappy second hand. But I can get myself cargo launch and star barge, which effectively, cargo launch is effectively a null card. It's not good, it's not bad. It lets me trigger ally abilities, but otherwise it does stone cold nothing. And I also got Spike Pod. So there were 3 1-cost cards, and I bought all 3 of them. And yep, there we go. So I got a really shitty second hand. 3 cash, not enough to really get anything, but fortunately for me, another 1-cost card has come up. So I'm rapidly increasing my deck, because I of course buy that Solar Skiff, and I buy CEO Torres so I can gain 7 health, which is not anything to sneeze at, and be able to trigger that draw ability from Solar Skiff at least once. And then I get not a bad amount, 5 cash. So what do I do with that 5 cash? I think I get the Hive. It's the best card on there. I've got 1 green card, but this does mean that I've got a very diverse deck, which is not helpful in this game. But look at this, 7 cash. Right, that's 7 cash right there. 8 with, or potentially 8 or more with CEO Torres, allowing the Solar Skiff to draw a card. Whereas my opponent was able to just buy 1 thing. What did they buy? Ah, come on. We need to go back a little bit further. Oh, they bought the Battle Barge. So they're getting... wait, sorry. Yeah, they bought the Battle Barge. So they're definitely getting their discard and redraw stuff on. And I don't think I noticed that at this point. Otherwise, I probably would have bought the Fighter Base, because if they keep forcing me to discard, that would be quite bad. So yeah, if I'd noticed, I would have at the very least destroyed the Fighter Base along with the Patrol Mech. But I didn't notice, And I definitely noticed here when they suddenly had 2 bases online. Did not want to see that. But I don't have enough damage to destroy either of them. So instead, I bought the War Elder and then didn't use it to get rid of a Viper. And here, I'm pretty sure I was kicking myself. I was like, wait, no, I meant to destroy a Viper since I couldn't take out one of the bases. But, yeah, he gets double usage of Central Station. He's got even more cards that'll make me discard. That can get really painful really quickly. And so, yeah, we got... How much cash do we have? Got 6 cash? No, 4 cash. And so we're getting more blob bases, starting to move more heavily into blob while I get rid of Central Station and try and prevent him from going too heavily in a direction I don't want him to. So I get to draw a card now. I get to use Battle Screecher to cycle. It would have been good if I could have bought whatever I buy now and then cycle my deck, but unfortunately I get no choice as to when the draw a card effect works. In the paper game you do. You actually get to pick when your ally abilities work. So I could have in the paper game gone, played all my cards, bought the Moonworm, which I'm going to buy this turn, and then cycled my deck to just make sure I could get it in the next 3 turns. But I couldn't. So here I get Admiral Rasmussen, which will allow me to draw a card later on. And trigger Imperial Frigate. He bought the Cunning Captain, not a bad choice, especially with the number of other discard things he's getting. And let's see what I can do. So I am starting to deny him more discard triggers, and I did finally get rid of some more stuff there. Like get rid of a Viper with the War Elder, and so I'm starting to kind of get more stuff out. But this is not great. Having to discard 2, never nice. But I have already cycled my deck now, so that Moonworm can come out soon, please. He's got Central Station down, and I'm like, oh, I need to get rid of at least one of these bases this turn. Fortunately, the Hive will allow me to draw a card. Yep, it's even with having to discard 3, and I can just, yeah, take out his stuff, do a lot of damage while he's forcing me to discard. So at this point, it's okay, get more blob cards, try and do what damage I can, and see where I can put him. So he's realized that he's not in a good spot, so he's starting to sacrifice things. I'm trying to clear the board so I can get the best card I can with Moonworm's ally ability, which allows me to get a card of 2 or less and put it into my hand and use it. So unfortunately the best at this point is Trade Pod. I was hoping for something that would let me trigger Solar Skiff or Star Barge, but I can't. At least I can buy Plasma Vent as a result, and it goes straight to my hand. And at this point I realize that is 22, and if I scrap the Spike Pod, that's 24. That is all I need to win, and that's what I did. Because fortunately these 2 weren't relevant. I think if that had gone on a couple more turns, I probably would have lost, because that was all my good cards right at the start. But yeah, so then the question becomes, what was the best decision? Not the best, like what was the points where my opponent didn't make the best decision and I did? I think one of the mistakes I was making is not picking up on the signaling. Fighter base, especially if you ever get to trigger fighter base multiple times with Battle Barge, is really nasty. It's kind of inoffensive on its own, it's just like a wall, but discarding 2 cards is bad, discarding 3 cards is painful, discarding 4 cards is crippling, and discarding 5 cards is obviously basically the worst possible thing. I managed to do it to my opponents a couple of times in some games, and it's delightful to do, but I think that was definitely a mistake. So I should have gotten rid of the fighter base earlier once I saw that they had gotten Battle Barge. It was too dangerous a combo out there. I should have used War Elder earlier, and I knew that was a mistake at the time, but I hit play all, I think, or I just forgot, because I did not get, like, that 1 point of damage it was not worth later drawing the Viper. And then what else? Getting rid of central, like prioritizing the central station over the blob wheel was definitely the right decision. Anything else that stands out to me? No, not really. They were, yeah, so they continued to get as much discard as possible. So I started to get rid of that. Yeah, no, I think those are the main ones. They probably could have scrapped the Cunning Captain earlier, but actually that worked out in their favor. If they'd scrapped it just a little bit later, then, like, if they, because they scrapped it here, which made me discard 3. And this is where I actually had to get rid of a card that I didn't want to get rid of. So, that worked out for them. Although, arguably, you know, doing it earlier would have been at least as sensible. They never really went after the breeding site, which is one of the reasons why I could continue to hit them. Well, they did. So, you know, I say that, and then immediately they kill the breeding site. So, don't think there's another obvious kind of mistake. Getting the plasma vent there was kind of the point in the game where I was able to win. Yeah. So I think that's about it. There's just a few minor mistakes. They're relatively towards the start. That's about it. Alright. Until next time, have a great day. We'll be back with a couple more games next week at this stage, if I recall my dates correctly. Until then, have a good day. Bye. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you spending the time and effort watching the videos I make. If you'd like to watch more, on the left there should be another video from this playlist. On the right there will be whatever YouTube recommends, and in the center there is a convenient subscribe button just in case you need it.